Hey, Marco, congratulations on winning this month's 11 Second Club Animation Contest. And my name is Dana Bodway, and I'm a mentor for AnimationMentor.com. And I've been doing that for a little bit over a year now, and I'm loving it. I think it's one of the most fulfilling jobs I've ever had in this business. So I'm going to start, first of all, by playing through your animation once or twice and just watching it.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem. No, I can get up myself. Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem. No, I can get up myself. No, thank you, I don't need your help.
The first couple of things that jump out at me that I really love are your character's lip sync. I love how asymmetrical and wonky the lip shapes are. It sort of gives it a lot of character, better than doing all of the mouth shapes symmetrical. It gives it a lot of a little extra expression. And I also love this little character that comes in on the side and helps the bus driver. He has a really great personality just from the short amount of time that he comes on screen. He tries to help, and he's got that look on his face. And I love the little glasses, push up that he does before he walks off.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem. No, I can get up myself. No, thank you, I don't need your help.
So I'm just going to start off by talking about body mechanics, and I'll just sort of go through and highlight some things that I think are really working, and some things that maybe will need a little bit of finessing. So one thing I'm going to mention right off the bat is his pose here at the beginning. He's pretty chilled out. He looks pretty relaxed. He's reading this paper. One thing that I think you need to watch out for are these little areas of tangency where the edge of this paper is just, there's hardly any negative space between there and the face. It's definitely touching the tip of the hat in a couple of places. So it's sort of muddying up your silhouette just a little bit. So what you might want to do is just move the hand out just a little bit, just to create a tiny little bit of extra negative space in between the paper and the head. And that will help to keep that nice and clear. And while he's doing this discussion here at the beginning, you've got a lot of movement happening in his upper body and very little happening in the hips. So when you're doing things like when your character his pose is leaning back against the bus, he's sort of curved that way, his hips are rotated out this way a bit and up for this leg that's up in the air. So when he's changing poses from that to that, you really should have some hip movement in there, so that the hips right now are really, really glued in place. They look like they're kind of pinned there, because you even have your knee moving here, and your upper body is very active. So you need to get a little bit of weight shift in there during that pose change. So you want to have some down-up movement. So when your character is unfolding and opening up, and sort of the upper body is kind of coming upwards, so you get the hips moving slightly ahead of that upper body movement, because what the hips will do is will give a little bit of momentum to your body to straighten up. So get the hips a little bit down first for a bit of anticipation, and then up slightly as just before his body opens there, and you'll get a nice little bit of momentum. And you can make this movement really, really subtle, but it's just going to keep everything in here alive, and it will give, like I said, that momentum to go into your movement of all that big upper body stuff. So it's really important to use the hips pretty much all the time. You know, little arm movements, you still might want to have the body come up just ever so slightly just before the arm moves, if it's a little small arm movement. But those little tiny extra movements in the hips are really going to keep your character living and stop that sort of deadness from happening in there. And I noticed over here, you know, when your character is talking, I'm seeing a lot more hip movement through here, even though you can't see them from the waist down, and that's really key. It's something that I have noticed a lot in student work and stuff, is that if the camera is cutting the character off at the waist, a lot of times they won't animate anything from there down, and that's a huge mistake. You need to show that your character still has legs, even though you can't see them. You know what I mean? So adding some little hip movement in through here will be great. Now, let's talk about the arm arcs a little bit. You've got a slightly arced movement here when the hand moves away from the body. I love that you've got, you know, your shoulders moving first and then the arm is picking up and moving out. That's great because you do have a nice overlapping action there. But I think in terms of the arm movement, you could sweep it down a little bit more. Give it just you could get it up a little bit first and then, you know, give it a nice little sweep across the body, you know, so that it creates a more dynamic line. And drag the wrist behind. So right now you've got when the arm comes out, you start off with the wrist kind of dragging, but then when it gets to the position, your hand is there at the same time that your arm hits the position. So if you continue to let the wrist drag a little bit longer and let it finish slightly after the arm, you'll get a softer hit there. And you know, if you want to have a very snappy move, you can make that happen over only you know, a couple or 3 frames, and it will still seem snappy, but it will just allow that movement to have a softer hit. It'll feel more organic, because when things hit keys at the same time, when you have your hand hitting at the same time as the arm position, it really kind of stiffens everything out, gives it a little bit more of a robotic feeling. And so if you really work those arc shapes, like I was talking about with the arm move, and really work the successive breaking of joints through the arm as you're going through that movement, it just gives it a much more organic feeling. I mean, you have to sort of find a happy medium. You don't want to make it too floppy or else it'll seem like spaghetti arms, and you don't want that. But just to get a slight follow-through will really help to give this, you know, a lot of life in the movement. And same thing with that, with his screen right arm, which is his left arm. As he's lifting his arms up, both arms, you know, you can break the wrist just slightly and have them finish slightly after the arms, rather than, you know, the arm moving like this and the wrist is sort of stiff on there. Just as it's coming up, once the arm starts to move, just let that wrist rotate back a little bit and then up, and finish slightly after the arm. And at the same time, you can also use, go down to a next layer of detail and use fingers as well. So not only is your wrist breaking, but your fingers are relaxing slightly as well. So you end up with a very multi-layered movement. And softening the hand up a little bit and relaxing a little bit on the way up will also, again, it will stop the hands from feeling like they're just these sort of solid clubs on the end of the arm. Because especially when you're looking at a proportion on a character like this one, his hands are really big in proportion. So the stiffer they are, the more like 2 big clubs of wood on the ends of his arms they're going to feel. So you really want to try and break down the movement right to the finger level so that you can end up with a less heavy hand, you know. And also in terms of hand posing, I'm seeing some pretty decent stuff. Like the way he's holding this paper is nice. It's got a really nice casual sort of feeling to it. very natural feeling to it. Although during this whole thing, his hand stays very stiff. He's holding the paper. There's no real sort of change in how relaxed or tight his grip is, or the index finger. There's lots of places in here where you can move that index finger around even, or tighten or loosen the two fingers that are bent down here. So if whenever he's this movement, as his arms are coming in, you might want to tighten these fingers a little bit more. Maybe bring the index finger in a little bit more, because he's waving the paper around, so you want him to, you've sort of got to hang on to it a little bit more tightly. So you can really just sort of tighten up those fingers a little bit and bring the index finger down. I know you can't, in terms of the position of the paper, you can't move them around in and out because they're going to intersect with that geometry, but what you can do is just find the areas where you have enough space to move. You can slide that finger up and down the outside of the paper. You can move these two fingers in here. And I guess you have to move the third one slightly as well, because it's really hard to move these two without moving the third one, the middle finger. And just to give that sort of, when he's making the big moves and he's gripping the paper a little bit harder, and then relax it a little bit more, like here, the hand would be just a little bit more relaxed. You could tighten it as he's moving out, relax it again here, tighten it as he's bringing the arm in again. And, I'm seeing some nice subtle overlap with the wrist there too, which is great. So just those little slight movements in the hand are really going to bring that hand to life, so that it's not just a mannequin hand that's, never shifting position through all that stuff. So those little tiny levels of detail with the hand animation really, really add a lot of life. And here, again, I'm seeing some drag behind this arm. His screen right arm is coming down. I'm seeing a bit of wrist drag, which is great. But again, you could relax the fingers a little bit more through that part. And then you've got your hand and your arm are hitting position at the same time again at the bottom of this when he gets into this pose down here. So that's another place where you can really use that overlap, the successive breaking of joints, elbow, wrist, fingers, let it all sort of overlap and open up. And again here, he's doing this big move with his whole upper body, and his hips stay, at the same height. So when he's doing, again, big moves with the upper body, you can get more hip movement in there. He's like, let the hips have got to have a little bit of anticipation, and then follow through. And they should happen a little bit before the body, so that they're creating some of the momentum for these big moves. So he's like, So the hips would be coming up a little bit ahead of all of this upper body movement, and then down a little bit before all of this upper body movement. And I think you'll find if you allow your body movement to happen slightly before your arm movement, it's sort of just finding that the chain reaction of what movement comes first and what follows. And if you start with the hips, like I said, you have the hips moving a little bit first, and then the body moves, and then the arms come up. So you got this chain of movement that works its way through the body from the hips sort of outward. That's a pretty good rule of thumb in terms of when your character is moving with the internal motivation of what he's thinking about. Starting from the hips is always a good place to go. And I'm noticing here that your arms are sort of hitting first. I think that if you delayed the arm move by a couple of frames and got the body down there, and then the arm sort of hit, I think you're going to find that it will be a nice, smooth, organic-looking movement. So it's just a matter of sort of reorganizing the order of movements a little bit. The general move isn't too bad, but the just getting a little bit more, a touch more detail in the overlap, so that you're working with your wrists and your fingers, as well as your shoulders and your elbows, and working in the hips up through the body and out through the arms. And he hits here, so his hips should come down here. And then if his hips come down in this move, then when he starts to go into his walk forward, it'll be great because he'll be already sort of on a down, and then he can step forward and up into that step. And same kind of thing again for the arm move. He's got a very sort of straight diagonal line here with that arm move. If you had him sort of swing his arm down and up, into that position, and drag the wrist behind again, and when you'll find when you drag the wrist behind and let it finish slightly after the arm, it'll really help to create a lot of those more exaggerated arc lines as well, which is a very helpful tool to getting a nice dynamic movement. And again, you can keep the hand a little bit more relaxed until he gets up into that pose, and then let it get into position slightly after the wrist finishes. And that's another layer of overlap there. And here, when he's lifting his hand up, if you get your wrist breaking a little bit there, and let that paper drag, so that when he's lifting his arm up, you let the wrist break a little bit there, and then when the arm comes down, it breaks the other way. So keep that wrist at this point, keep that wrist bent up more, and let the paper really drag and keep the wrist bent up. And then as his arm is coming back up this way, as his whole body is moving in this direction, let the elbow open up, let the wrist drag behind. Right now the arm is sort of traveling on this at the same time as the body, and if you just let that arm open up as his body is moving backwards, you can open the arm up and drag the wrist behind a little bit, relax the hand pose a little bit. And then you could get a really nice arc that goes like this, so that when he starts to fall, you've already got the arm is moving on that arc, and whoa, and you can get a really nice big circle there. Because right now it kind of comes, you've kind of got the arc coming this way, and then it changes direction really quickly when you get into the falling part. So rather than having this sort of two-part movement where the arm comes up and over and then hits the spot here and changes direction suddenly, what you can get is a smooth, big arc movement that will really, it'll add to that whole falling down, losing of the balance. And you can just continue that arm movement, arm movement as he's trying to sort of catch himself and keep the wrist again, same thing. You've started to have it breaking again here, but again, the arm gets over here, the wrist hits kind of at the same time. So, and then you've got a funny bump in the arc in there. And then when he's falling down, he just all of a sudden disappears in one frame. You can see the top of his head and his hands, and blink, he's gone. So I know you want him to sort of fall down quickly, but it creates a bit of a popping sensation visually when he goes off screen so quickly. So you might want to just, in this frame, just show the tops of his hands, so that it doesn't pop off quite so badly. Just give us one more visual cue of where those arcs of motion are going as he's falling off screen. And then the kid comes in, and you've got kind of a similar situation with the hip movement and the arm movement. When he comes in, I'd like to see him come down and up and have a bit of a settle in terms of how his hips are traveling. So he comes in and he's down, up, and then he's got a bit of a settle, and get his arms following. So his body sort of comes down first, and then his arms a little bit. Because right now he's just sort of stopping dead when he comes in. You need to show his stopping motion, that he's stopping himself. You don't want him to feel like he's just running and then he's frozen. All of a sudden he freezes to a stop. And giving him a little bit of a settle there at the end, and having his arms follow his body down is going to help to create that inertia ending moment. And you could keep his arms down towards the guy a little bit longer here, so that it's like, he's sort of coming up and the arms are following slightly. He's tried to help pull the guy up, so you can give it a little bit more sense of that pulling motion if you sort of keep him bent over a little bit longer and let his arms sort of follow behind a little bit longer. We're only talking about maybe a couple more frames. And then when he pulls up, you get his hips going up, and then he can have a settle there. So he comes up and settles, up and settles. So you can feel his weight, because when he's coming from that crouched down position to stand up, he's got momentum going in that up direction. And because there's this crazy thing called gravity that we have to deal with, he can't just stay in that up position. He's got to come down a little bit because he's got weight. So you want to show that sort of settling into his pose a little bit. And I like the overlap here. His hips come up, his body comes up, his body sort of unravels, and then his glasses pushing motion happens, which is great. I love that. I love that move. And here, as he's getting up, you could probably swing his arm down and up a little bit more through here, so that it gets a more exaggerated arc shape. And watch his hip movement through this whole part as he's stepping up onto the butt steps or getting up from his fallen position. I'm getting the feeling that he's stepping with his screen right foot or his left foot through here, but I'm not seeing that reflected in the hip movement. So you want to see the hips take a little bit of weight there. And same thing again with the arm here as he's bringing his arm down. Drag the wrist. Let the hand stay dragging. That's probably a bit much, but and finishing slightly after the arm. And you can relax the finger pose again on the way down. So he's you can just relax the whole hand out a little bit as it's on the way down. And keep the arm a little bit straighter through here so that it doesn't, right now you're in your hip up motion, your body's going in up motion, and your arm and hand are hitting at the same time, so you're getting everything kind of happening at the same time there. If you let that arm drag behind a little bit and then hit after the body gets up into position, it'll add more weight, more organic feeling, and it could also really help to give him that dragged out, exhausted, beat up kind of feeling if his arms drag behind a bit more even than they did in the beginning. And same thing with his other arm. His other arm is moving up into place at the same time his hips are moving up into place, at the same time this arm is moving up into place. So you kind of have everything moving at the same time there. And then I'm seeing a couple of frames at the end of the shot where he's completely frozen. Keep him moving to the end of the shot. That's something that you'll hear from directors all the time in studios, if he's frozen in the last couple of frames of the shot, they'll say, keep him alive through the very end. Animate out a couple of frames past the end of the shot, and then you won't have a problem with that. Now, something that I would love to see is the bus move when he's falling down and he's grabbing onto it, and then when he's grabbing onto it, pulling himself back up. I would love to see the bus have a bit of shake there, and these characters up top, give them a little bit of overlap with the bus shake. I love that when the action happens and he falls down, and their attention is drawn, to this situation that's happening down there. And, you see this guy's expression change. And this nice subtle stuff that they're doing, it's not really drawing the attention away, but they are watching the action of what's going on, which is great. But I do feel in the beginning part, I would like to see maybe a bit more from this guy, not more, but sort of something different. Maybe have him looking off screen towards screen left a little bit, sort of watching his friends or something like that. So his attention is completely somewhere else, along with the other kid who's sleeping, so his attention is definitely not on what's happening. And then when he starts to fall and he grabs onto the bus door, and the bus sort of gets pulled. I know you're sort of showing this with a camera shake, but even earlier when he's grabbing on the bus, if the bus moved a little bit and they got shaken slightly, then their attention could be drawn in. They could be sort of shaken out of whatever else they were doing and brought into this situation with the bus driver. Acting-wise, I'm liking what's going on in general. I think in the very beginning part here, when he is doing all of these actions, he's sort of hitting every line, every accent of the dialogue. He's got a different pose for it in the beginning part there, and I think that might be a little bit much in terms of illustrative sort of acting, and especially when he says left arm and he shows his left arm. I think that's a little bit too over the top in terms of delivery. If you keep, it's sort of one thought at the beginning when he's saying,
okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep.
My legs and my left, okay, so my legs and my left arm. So my legs and my left arm, that's kind of one thought, and you've divided it up. My legs and my left arm. My legs and my left arm. So it's and the fact that he's, showing my left arm, you could make it the acting a lot more subtle and natural if you chose to do something that was sort of one pose through the whole legs and left arm action rather than illustrating the dialogue sort of separately.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep.
And you've got this big movement here, go to sleep. And in terms of the phrasing of the entire shot, I like, it's good that you have an accent there. It makes sense with the dialogue. I think go to sleep, and he's, sort of thinking, his communication is like, yeah, so they go to sleep, like, so what, maybe a more subtle movement there would be better in terms of the whole phrasing of the whole shot, because then later, once he gets into, throwing down the paper, and then all of a sudden he loses his legs, all of those big movements will have a lot more impact in terms of the climactic moment of the shot if the movements surrounding it or before it are a bit more smaller and subtle. So that's just something to think about when you're doing a shot. It's good to sort of figure out what's the pinnacle moment, what's the main sort of push that's happening in the shot. And in this case, it's really when he falls over. Whoa, and there's this big, he falls down. So that's kind of like the climax of this shot. And so keeping what you want to do is create some contrast between that moment and the rest of the shot, so that everything doesn't just sort of look like it's the same intensity. That way you're going to get a bit more of an emotional ride if you have a bit more contrast that way. So, you could do all of these same movements and poses basically, but you could just make them smaller. Just keep it a little bit more restrained. Everything doesn't have to be so big. And then when he's falling, make those movements really big. Really exaggerate the poses. Really exaggerate the arms, flailing. And then at the end, again, sort of make everything small, minimize. I mean, his whole thing is, he's like, it's okay, I'm fine, I don't need to be helped, so he's trying to just sort of minimize the situation. So in there you can have some small little hand moves, and, it's okay, I don't need to, I'm fine, everything's sort of a bit more contained. He's really embarrassed. He's going to kind of withdraw a little bit. I like the little tip of the hat. That's a great move. One thing that strikes me in the end part of this shot is when he says, no, it's okay, I don't need your help, and the kid is gone so fast.
I can get up myself. No, thank you, I don't need...
Before he says, no, thank you, I don't need your help, the kid's off screen. So something that is ringing true to me is that the kid should still be on screen when he says, no, thank you, I don't need your help. Maybe the kid should still be trying to help him and not give up quite so soon. I mean, here he could do this part, do the glasses, and maybe reach out to grab his arm again as he's trying to get up. And then the bus driver says, no, thank you, I don't need you. Bus driver can pull away from him and say, like, no, thank you, I don't need your help.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem. No, I can get up myself. No, thank you, I don't need your help.
Okay, so in terms of his facial expression and lip sync, like I said before, I'm really enjoying the asymmetrical lip sync shapes. They're great. I think that they're reading really well.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem.
The only word that I think isn't reading quite as well is problem.
And you want to call it a health problem.
His mouth kind of is staying closed for after prob. I'm not seeing the second part of the word.
Leave. And you want to call it a health problem.
And you don't even really need to see the tongue so much in there as just a little bit of a mem. You need to see the two M shapes with the in between. That's really the only thing that you need to see. Lem, problem, lem. Nem. It seems like you've hit your all the rest of your heavy consonants really well, and your big vowel shapes. So you're getting it's a great read of the dialogue without being too verbose. You know, he doesn't have too many jaw movements. He doesn't have too many lip shapes. It's definitely a big trap that you can get caught in pretty easily is over enunciating the dialogue. And you've done a really good job of simplifying that.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem. No, I can get up myself. No, thank you. I don't need your help.
So through the beginning part, his facial expression it's looking a little bit too worried here, I think. I think in the beginning part, his attitude should really read casual, and like, so what, so occasionally my arms and my legs and my left arm fall asleep. It's like, so what, whatever. So keeping the eyes from being too wide open, I think, would probably be good. Giving him a very sort of casual facial expression. So it happens sometimes, like, so what, the eye rolling and stuff. You do have a good eye roll in there, but just sort of keeping it from feeling like there's ever an alarmed look there. Then when you get to the part where he's falling, and everything goes big, that'll be a really nice contrast in expression. And he has really great embarrassed, sheepish expressions here at the end, going from, it's okay, I'm fine, sheepish, and then into that in pain look just before the end cut, which I think is really great timing. You just barely see that pass over his face right before the shot ends, which I think is fantastic. And it looks like you've done a really good job with overlapping those movements in the face as well, which is fantastic. You can really give a face a lot of extra flexibility just by overlapping the eye and eyebrow movements and keeping everything sort of separated rather than elements of the face hitting their poses at the same time. It's the same with animating any part of the body. You don't want keys and poses to hit at exactly the same time because it just gives it that element of feeling robotic rather than feeling organic. So his face has a nice organic feeling to it. There's a lot of nice overlap there. As he's falling down, I think he could kind of come down and up a little bit and then down again. That would, he's falling down, he kind of catches himself a little bit with the hand here, which would pull the bust down just a little bit. And then, he kind of pulls himself up slightly, but then his arm falls asleep. So you'd get that sort of, his legs go first. You'd sort of get that, and he'd kind of catch himself a little bit with his arm, and then his arm would go and fall asleep. And if you had that down, up, down movement where he sort of catches himself slightly with his arm and then lets go again, you would also get that head back up into screen a little bit more so that we could really see that expression on him.
Okay, so my legs and my left arm occasionally go to sleep, and you want to call it a health problem. No, I can get up myself. No, thank you. I don't need your help.
I think you have a lot of really great things working for you in this shot, and I think just a matter of a little bit of body mechanics finessing in terms of engaging the hips and all of that movement. You've got a lot of really nice overlapping stuff in the upper body, and if you just engage the hips with that so that they're leading the action a little bit more in some places and really work on the detail of your overlap in your hand and arm movements, that stuff will really finesse nicely. So really great stuff. I was very happy to be able to do your e-crit for you this week, and I hope you found it helpful. And I will be continuing to watch the 11 Second Club to see what else comes out. Really great stuff. I will hopefully maybe hear from you one day and see you out in the business. And all the best to you. Take care.